Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. We have the pleasure of having Bilbo Göransson. I met Bilbo at LVO. I went to my first LVO. I attended a workshop, and I've always said the Warhammer community is great. And I met Bilbo, and he introduced me to Genestealer Cult, which took out my army. But I thought it'd be a good idea to have Mr. Göransson on here to go over the new codex and how it fared. Genestealer Cult have been in a tough spot in 9th, and he came all the way from Sweden to play in LVO. So this is the first time you've seen the new codex in a competitive environment. So I'm just going to step back, let Mr. Göransson tell you a little bit about himself, and then the new codex of the Genestealer Cult. So the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, to talk to you. And I was also very happy to meet you guys at the LVO and at the workshop. I think meeting so many cool people at the Vegas Open was by far the best thing about the whole event. There were so many cool people. I didn't know what to expect since my friends bailed in the last second. So I didn't know exactly what to expect. I wasn't coming with a group of people. But meeting you guys and meeting a lot of others who, we share nothing but the Warhammer community and the interest for this miniature hobby. Meeting you guys, it was by far the best experience I could ever hope for. And I hope, of course, that you had a good time when we were playing the game.
Awesome.
I didn't really, I was having a blast, man. I think it was just so much fun. And I didn't really know what to expect because, the cutoff for when you could actually use a new codex was after the 17th. You couldn't use a new codex. But since the Genestealer Cult's codex came down together with the Custodes codex on the 17th, exactly, that meant that we could actually play the new codex, or we could play Genestealer Cults and Custodes with the new rules. But no one had actually tried them. So I think I'd played Genestealer Cults with the new codex 2 times already before the LVO. So the main event, the 40K championship at the LVO, was actually my training ground. I made a list in a couple of hours, not knowing exactly what to take. So I took something, from every, I took a couple of support characters, nothing fancy. I took a myriad cult. That is a successor chapter, if you will. You pick your own kind of abilities. What I thought would look easy to manage in such a short period of time before the game. And also a couple of OBSEC units, a couple of units, nothing too advanced because I didn't have time to try it. So I tried it only 2 times before the main event. And it worked out fine for me. And it showed for me at least that, Genestealer Cults in 9th edition can be rewarding, extremely rewarding if you play it correctly. It can also be very punishing if you slip up, still like Genestealer Cults are supposed to be, very tricky, both for the opponent and the player themselves, trying to operate the army. And, it was a ton of fun. I had a lot of fun. And I think all of the opponents that I met were really happy to finally see Genestealer Cults back in a big way on this event. I spoke to some people who also brought their Genestealer Cults. I don't know if we were a dozen and a half people bringing the Genestealer Cults this time, and we had everyone I spoke to about it was really having the time of their life. We've been waiting so long. We were already having a tough time after all the nerfs in the end of 8th edition. In the beginning of 9th edition, we had the points hike. So everything got much more expensive in terms of points. But at the same time, they took away a lot of the Brood Surge, about the Aberrants fighting on death, all these special rules that actually made Genestealer Cults viable in 9th edition, in 8th edition, I mean. They took those rules away, but still hiked the points up. So we were in a rough spot for a long time, as you just said. And I think that a lot of people are very happy, very, very happy to see that we're back. And we have not only the old tricks, but at a, what would you say, at a discount, CP wise and so on. But actually, there's a whole plethora of new activities, you know, new tricks, new units, or rather the old units working in totally new ways. And the you know, we're so happy. We're so happy about this codex. The online community, Genestealer Cult's community, is alive and kicking. Talking
Nice.
about all the, yeah, it's fantastic, man. Seeing all the different combinations, not just like twisted helix spam or pure strain spam. It's just we're just having a blast experimenting with it.
So before ninth, how long have you been playing Genestealer Cult?
I was trying when you asked me before this recording, I was trying to think. I think the first time I played in an organized event like this, like a competitive event, was 2018. It was here in my city. I came maybe 90th or 98th place out of 100 or something like that. I was not a good player. I'm still not, you know, I'm still learning. But I had a good time that time, and something bit me. You know, I was since then I've been addicted to this hobby. I think I was it was when those neophyte models came out, about when the Kill Team came out together with AdMech. If you remember, I was sharing that box and I just fell in love with the models and the grim dark lore of it. But the thought, I didn't really have the idea that I would go into competitive play, but it's grown on me. And I since 2018, I thought that this is actually a part of a hobby that I really enjoy, and it's grown on me. And now I think it's except for maybe painting and converting, I think it's the part of the hobby that I really enjoy the most. So I converted more or less my whole army that I brought to the LVO. I converted and painted it 2 weeks before leaving Stockholm.
Looked really nice. So what do you think the biggest changes from 8th to 9th with this new codex that's really helped the Genestealer Cult? And after you just, where do you think Genestealer Cult's now place, like level? Are they at the bottom like they did before? Did they move up a little bit? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we were, you know, scraping the bottom of the barrel together with Tau before this codex, I think we're somewhere in the upper part of the middle, or maybe lower part of the top. It's kind of hard to tell right now because there's so many ways to play it. And I think that when some of the top players, and I'm not one of the top players, but when one of the top players really gets their mind working about how to actually use this codex and really like abuse the rules. There are so many weird rules about deploying. You can deep strike in turn 1. You can deep strike 8 inches away, 6 inches away, 3 inches away. And there are so many different aura buffs. And I think it's the codex that has the most buffing characters. I mean, all the codexes right now. So, I mean, the combinations, we've just been scraping the surface, if you will, of the possibilities of this codex. So it might be ending up on top, you know, that it can be the codex to rule them all. But I'm not sure yet. I just think that if you, since I'm from Sweden, I think in a way, in Norse mythology, you know, there's a Norse god, or, you know, there was in the mythology this Norse god Loki, and he wasn't the strongest one, he wasn't the most intelligent one, and he wasn't the proudest or the, you know, he was but he was a trickster, and he could fool anyone. And that, you know, it just in all of the stories, he just jams this monkey wrench into the engine and just fools everyone and so on. I think that is more or less what Genestealer Cult does to the meta. They're not as fast as Drukhari. They don't shoot as good as Tau. They're not as resilient as the Space Marines or Custodes, or Crusher Stampede for that matter. But they could actually, because they have so much ploy, they have so much play and different ways to fool the enemy, fool the opponent into making bad decisions. They have so many ways to exploit bad decisions from the opponent's side. I think that they can actually be the Loki the 40k meta going forward. You know, they can really, I mean, the tower really good at shooting, but the Genestealer cults could come in from the backside, taking over their objectives, and even though they can get shot down, you still end up with 0 primary points. And the same goes for the close combat armies and so on. So I think it's a really interesting. I mean, it's 40k on hard mode, right? It's really not like just moving up your Wolfen or you know, Blood Angel intercessors into the middle and holding it for 15 free points of Oath of Moment. It's nothing like that. But that's also what's making it so compelling. And I think the new codex has really helped the Genestealer Cult's players to use that to their advantage, but without paying all the command points. I mean, before, all the good stratagems I mean, they were crucial to play Genestealer Cults in order to use all these ploys. To use them, you really needed to pay these 2 CP, 3 CP stratagems in order for the army to work. However, now, I mean, there are some more expensive stratagems, but most of them, I think that the vast majority cost 1 CP. And a lot of times, I mean, deep striking 6 inches away or even 3 inches away, it costs no command points. So it's a totally different kind of game now. You have to plan a bit in advance, but at the same time, you know, you don't. You asked what the biggest differences were, and I think that's the thing. In the end of 8th edition, and especially in the beginning of 9th edition, I think especially in the beginning of 9th edition, playing Genestealer Cults felt a bit like paying taxes. You know, it's important, it's good. You know, it's for some reason, it's probably, you know, someone is smiling about it, but it's not us. You know, it's important. But you spend all these CP into something that should already work. And what they did now is that they totally changed it. So you plan ahead, you put these proficient planning abilities on your army before the game even starts. You have to know, are the pure strain Genestealers going to move forward and do the alpha strike? Are you going to use these extra abilities? Who is going to be able to deep strike 3 inches? Who is going to be able to come in from reserves turn 1? And so there's so many cool new abilities that you can put into this army now. So we're just having a blast. You know, we're just having so much fun experimenting with what kind of combinations could actually work right now. So it's a great time. It's a great time for Genestealer Cults player. That's all I can say about it.
So if you could just name like a couple things that you think are key to the army that came out in the 9th edition codex to help get them going, what would you say those new key things are that are helping the Genestealer Cults work how would you work better or perform better in competitions?
Well, during 9th edition, but with the 8th edition codex, what you would do as a Genestealer Cult player turn 1 would be to hide. You know, you would hold back. You would hope that the enemy doesn't have anything that makes them move in the shooting phase or psychic phase after you've deployed your blips. So maybe I should explain what that means. Genestealer Cults has this very weird pre-game game. So it's a mini game. Before the game starts, you put blips instead of units on the board. So it looks like a broken radar. There's just red dots all over the board. And
I was confused.
You experienced this firsthand. So you don't really know what unit goes where. And even if you did, the Genestealer Cults player can actually move these blips around and put them back into deep strike, so that you have no idea what the Genestealer Cults player is doing. And the problem for the Genestealer Cults player, of course, is that we didn't either. We didn't know what was going where. It totally depends. So we almost had like 2 or 3 different deployment phases, and it was eating up the clock. It was eating up time that we could be spent playing the game. Instead, we were just, trying to understand what the heck is going on in our own deployment zone. So before we would put these blips. The blips are are still there, but they changed it a bit so you deploy them now in your command phase. And moving out of those blips before was kind of a hassle. Now they made it much more easier. But one of the key things that you can do now is that one of your units can actually move out of your blip and move twice before charging. So that gives the Genestealer Cult's player actually the first Alpha Strike strategy in 9th edition, because they took away what was called the Brood Surge before. It was that before you could move up the trucks, the transports in the army before the game starts, and you could actually jump out and charge turn 1. They took that out in early 9th edition. So we haven't really had an Alpha Strike. We just had the hiding turn 1, and it was kind of tedious. And for the opponents, it wasn't really that fun because you couldn't really move up. And for us, you know, we had to treat our turn 2 as the turn 1. That's when we really could put out the hurt, and it could work. But with the new codex, we really have this Alpha Strike. You can pre-game move the bikes. You can pre-game move whatever unit. Normally, what I've seen is pure strain Genestealers because they can move twice and they're really, really fast. They also got this buff. I would say that was probably the second thing. You know, the first thing is that we have an Alpha Strike. The second thing is that the units that we could use for an Alpha Strike are really getting stronger. You know, the pure strain Genestealers were, I wouldn't even say barely unplayable. They were downright unplayable. They were atrocious, impossible to use in a codex. And I loved them, you know, as a model and for the lore. I love the Genestealers, but you couldn't even bring Genestealers in a competitive Genestealer Cult army in the 8th edition codex. They were more expensive than Genestealers in the Tyranid codex, but you didn't get OBSEC, you didn't get army-wide rules, and so on. So they were just horrible. Now you have the 4+ invuln save, you hit on 2s, you have 4 attacks each. They can be buffed because they get army-wide rules. Like if you're Twisted Helix, for example, you get +1 strength. That means now your pure strain Genestealers are also strength 5. They also benefit from that army-wide rule. So it's a great buff, you know. And they're since they should be the poster boys of the Genestealer Cult. You know, they're the ones that are getting all the praise. You know, that's what the cult is all about. And of course, that should be your hard-hitting unit. And I love that that's what they did in this codex. They brought them to the fore. Now they are your heavy hitters. They're fast. They hit hard. They can take a hit, and they move twice often. You know, it's and they of course they also get the buffs from the rest of the army, which you know they never did before. It's just so much fun. There's so many things. I don't even know where to start. You know, the myriad cults, which is the specialist cults where you put together your own set of rules, more or less like a successor chapter in the Space Marine book. They have so many combinations. They have this really interesting system where you have like construction points, cult points. You have 4 of them, so you can have 2 really strong buffs or 4 weaker ones. I go for the weaker ones, so since I love more buffs, but I've seen some really cool play with lesser but stronger buffs. I think the main buffs in the codex, or I'd say the main cults, like, you know, 4-armed Emperor, they get twice the amount of command points as anyone else, more or less, because you don't. There's so many abilities. I can't go into all of them. Twisted Helix, as I already said, they're stronger. They can take a hit. You have the Hive Cult. They can do actions and still shoot, so they will be really strong, I think.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this chapter approved the new missions. I just skimmed them through, you know, but there are so many actions, and you will be able to use all of that, you know, getting a lot of primary and secondary points, and at the same time, you know, they're really strong at shooting. They get double hits on the exploding 6s and so on when they're shooting. I mean, I think they're going to be one of the favorites going forward.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I liked when I met you, is because when we got paired up at the workshop, I'm like, I've never seen Genestealer Cult before, and you're like, no, you're gonna want to watch out for this. You're gonna want to watch out for this, and this is how this works. And then even after the game, you're like, yeah, some people play this wrong, but you're like, and you explain it very well. I mean, I think it was your Genestealers, like they got all the way across the board and took out my chaplain on bike first turn. I was like, wait, what? And you're like, well, yeah, because of this and this. And you went, well, like 20 something inches, I think. And I was like, what? So that was pretty
it's one of the, I think that is the one that people will get tired of it, or rather people will get to know it, and then they can screen against it and it won't be as strong. But what they do is right now is that you put a buff on your Genestealer unit so that when they appear from this blip in your deployment zone, which is very ominous, very weird mechanic. I think a lot about the Alien 2 movie when the blips are moving in on the location, I don't know if you saw it. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
It's very ominous. So that's what I feel like, with the Genestealer cults, because they deploy from this blip, and your pure strain Genestealers, normally they move up 8 inches, but then they get to move up 8 inches more and then advance on top of that, and they get advance and charge. And with the right buffs, they have 50 attacks going forward. So Rend 3, Strength 4. So that will kill a chaplain on bike even. It's
did
take him out. Yeah. It was all good fun, right?
It was great. I just love playing Wargame. So here's my question for you. So you had basically a week and a half to prepare for LVO with the new codex. So you made a plan. You went to LVO. You played 6 games. 6 games is a pretty good testing sample, I'd say. Knowing what with your idea going into it, and then the results coming out of it, is there any changes you're going to make now, or are you like, okay, this will work, I just gotta play it more and get used to it, or is there like, oh, that didn't work so well, or what?
Well, it's a great question. I've been asking myself the same thing. Already on the plane home, it was an 11-hour flight, and that's from LA.
Quick flight.
Yeah. It was commuting. I was commuting. I was trying to reconstruct my list, and I ended up with my same list as I brought to the LVO nice. 4 or 5 times, because I think that the combination that the acolytes, the meat and bone of the Genestealer Cult, although the pure strain Genestealers are really good shock troops, they can move up and take something out turn 1 or 2, but the real heavy hitters are still the acolytes. They bring the heavy industrial weapons like rock cutters, like rock drills that auto wound. Rock saws, not so much anymore, but they're still, they have play, but it's damage 2, so it's easy to bring that down to damage 1. So I don't think we'll see so many of those, but still, the acolytes they're cheap, they got durable, they heal models now with the cult icon. You have these industrial weapons, you have the hand flamers, they have great leadership for what they do, and they're only 9 points. So I think they're the meat and bone. I already knew that I want a list that can skew into that kind of tactics that you use, because they have OBSEC as well, so they are really strong now, and they have OBSEC, so they could actually take a punch and still stand on your objective against most, anything except the hardest hitters. They will stand around, and they can even heal back models, taking back your objective in your command phase, next command phase, and so on. So there's some really strong play there, and I thought really from the get-go I wanted to bring 4 or 5 units of acolytes into the army, and every time I rebuild this, I try to bring that down so I can bring more metamorphs, that is the mutated weird hybrids, or the pure strain Genestealers, or the aberrants, or more characters, more bikes, more vehicles. The rock grinders, I'd love them, but every time I end up like going back into, no, but actually I need this, I need these acolytes, I need this, the neophytes also, they're like guardsmen but with stronger weapons, so it's and cheaper. So you have these units that are really the backbone of the army, and I just feel like every time I try to take something of that out, I take too much out of the essence of what I think made the army viable. You know, I was expecting to lose every game. I had no practice going into the LVO, but I had the experience of how to play it during, you know, 9th edition with the 8th edition codex. So that's more or less what I already brought in, what I brought into the championship. And I think that, you know, as much as I want to change it up, I want to bring in all these other cool models and cool units. I think you can't really go wrong with acolytes. You can't really go wrong with neophytes. You need those in your list in order to play the game. And that will be even more. I mean, this one, the 2021 mission pack, you needed the OBSEC units for that. But going into the chapter approved 22, you're going to need even more. That's the one. That's the one exactly. I have it here too. I don't really know where I put it.
Here's a pro tip: if you cut your basic rules out of the old one and Spider with the new one, it makes a decent book with all the rules in it. Very
cool pamphlet there. I'm gonna take your tip. It's a great idea. Yeah. Actually, a friend here has this print shop, so I'll probably do it this week. Yeah, great idea.
So going into that, the other thing I learned Thursday night that I didn't know, one of the instructors of the class told me. So let's just touch on your secondaries real quick. He goes, basically against Genestealer Cult, don't even try and stop them from rotting. So what I pretty much learned from Genestealer Cult is it seems like you guys would automatically take rod, and then the other one that you took that I saw it one time in a battle report, you used it in person, the one where you have more models in each, what was it, each table third, I think it was. So
yeah, the brute swarm.
What's your take on the secondaries for the Genestealer Cults? What would you say are like these are the ones a Genestealer Cult should play?
Well, it depends, right? But I think there are two solid picks in every game. I think brute swarm that you mentioned now, that you have to, if you have more models. I mean, this is a horde army. I brought to the LVO as a stupid man. I brought 100 models to Vegas. You know, it's if I was an intelligent man, I would probably, you know, bring an elite army so I can carry it in a briefcase. You know, but I got this really big box, and it was very, it was obnoxious for me and my fellow, you know, the other people in the plane that I brought it on. You know, hand luggage as well, as an idiot. But it was when you had that many models. Brute Swarm is really good because you get basically 1 point if you have more models in your deployment zone than your opponent does. So if I have more models in my deployment zone that you have in my deployment zone, I get 1 point. So that was, I mean, from the bat, I will get straight off the bat 5 points, you know, 1 for every turn, because you will never be more than me. And if I have more models than you in no man's land, that is between my deployment zone and yours, I get another point. And I get a 3rd point every turn. That's already, I mean, looking at 15 points or thereabout. Yeah. If I have more models in your deployment zone than you do. And since most armies wants to push out from their deployment zone, it's easy for Genestealer Cults to deploy through deep strike or pre-game moves into the enemy deployment zone. And especially, I mean, against Knights or Crusher Stampede or even Custodes, it's easy to even turn 1 actually be having more models in your own opponent's deployment zone. And what you get if you have all these 3 victory conditions or secondary objective conditions met, you get a 4th point as well in the end of your turn. So that's basically every turn, every game I played in the LVO, I got 15 points from that. If I didn't get tabled, I would get 15 points from Brood Swarm. It's a great secondary, and it also keeps, you know, it keeps your it's very interactive. So your opponent has to think about it, and when you try to think about it and play against it, you can slip up. And as I said, Genestealer Cults are really good at exploiting when the opponent is slipping up because they're so fast, They have they have such a wide arsenal of both stratagems and units that can do different things. They can shoot, they can do actions, they can fight, they can charge, they can advance and charge. The normal Goliath truck, which is more or less like a rhino, he can move up 18 inches and advance and charge, with the right spell and stratagem. So then you can use, and they can blow up for 1 CP when they get hurt and just spill out obsec units into your opponent's deployment zone in the end of the turn. So there are so many ways to make it work. And if you just try to second guess as an opponent how to play against it, it could actually hurt you more than just letting your opponent, letting the Genestealer Cult player get those 15 points. That is on top of you said ROD, which is the Retrieve Octarius Data secondary. Every game that I've played during 9th edition so far, if I didn't get tabled, I would get 12 points from Retrieve Octarius Data, because you have to do this action in every table quarter. And if you do, you get 12 points if you get all the 4 quarters in. And because we're so agile, and that only, they increased that now because we can deep strike so much closer. It got even easier to achieve it. At the same time, it got harder for everyone else, because now you need the troops to do it in the new mission pack. We might get to that later on, but it actually, I would say during until now and during the LVO, I think Retrieve Octarius Data and the Brood Swarm were the best secondaries to pick for a Genestealer Cult player. I would say probably from my very superficial understanding of the chapter approved 22 Grand Tournament pack, I think that maybe Retrieve Octarius Data, automatic 12 points, will get swapped in most of my games for the objective Homer. What is it called? Secure Homer or something like that. I'm always thinking of, since English is not my first language, I'm always thinking of Homer Simpson when I see the name. So like retrieving Homer. But anyway, I think that will instead turn into an automatic 15 points instead of the automatic 12 points of the.
The deploy teleport homers.
Yes, the deploy teleport homers, exactly. Right. I think because now if you do it with a troop, and our troops, as I said, are the backbone of the codex. If you do that action with a troop unit, you finish it in your own turn. You get 4 points. So you can actually, in 4 turns, you could maximize that into 15 points. Because it caps out at 15. I think it's going to be even easier to score secondary points in the new mission pack. And but the third one, I think, is the most. Sorry for Bob. If cut me off if you think I'm talking too much about these secondaries. Yeah.
No.
So I'm just gonna ramble on until you stop me, or just pull the plug, like blame Wi-Fi or something. Just plug me out.
No, let's hit this third one. Yeah, because we don't have a lot of, like I said, in 2 years, I never ran up against Genestealer Cult. So this was like an eye opener when you're like, I'm doing this, and I'm like, where'd my army go? It's gone.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, the fun thing is that these secondaries, you don't even need to take your opponent out in order to score 45 points with it. These two that I just said, that's 30 points without even, you could do those without firing a single shot or attacking with a single dice. You can flub all your charges and still get 15 out of 15 on both of those, right? Yeah. And I think the third one is even more fun, because the third one, normally, I would say in all of my games, almost all of my games, probably, I would take there's a stratagem in the new codex, Genestealer Cult's codex, where you can actually not tell the opponent what secondary you took until you score it the first time. And there's a lot of secondaries that you actually, if you read it closely, you don't score until the end of the game. So like Assassinate, for instance, you could take Assassinate if your opponent is Black Templars, for instance, the new Black Templars. They have, yep, exactly. So you would take a lot of characters in your army And it's a bit of a no-brainer, but I don't actually have to tell you that I took assassinate. I could actually take to the last. But since I don't tell you, you might think, because you have so many characters, that I'm going to attack your characters and you will hold them back more than you actually needed to. But I will take to the last. So, you know, I will score my 15 points and you will keep second guessing and you won't know until the end of the game which one I took. And I used this in a very sneaky way in a game, my third game, one of the best I had in my life, actually, one of the best hobby experiences in my life. The first day, third game against Space Wolves. His name escapes me. I'm sorry. He was a great guy. I shouldn't guess. I think it was Jeff. I'm not sure, so I shouldn't guess that it was Jeff, but I would if I could. So he was a great player. You know, he was fantastic. Great on the, you know, great strategist, but also a great guy. Pure gentleman. Really, like, I had a great time playing him. So it was the vital intelligence one, you know, the one with the split deployment, like down like one of those Sunday sandwiches. So diagonally deployment. So what I did was the third one that I hid. I took those two, of course, that I already said, retrieve Octarius data and the Brood Swarm. But the third objective that I hid was actually, maybe it was the first time anyone played this objective any time in the history of 9th edition. It was Pierce the Veil, which is the horrible warp action, psychic action secondary. No one takes it because it's so crappy. But what I did was, let's see if I get this right. I was up, I had this diagonal, right? This lower one.
Yeah.
What I did was I moved up with my Magus on the far side, because you have to be 6 inches from the enemy's table side. And since our deployment is so close to the table side, I could start with one Magus here, which is the Psyker, a very good Psyker in the Genestealer Cult's list. And I could just move up my hard hitters and take out anything that was in here. So all the rest of his Space Wolf army, which is, you know, fantastic close combat army, they were stuck on this side. So when I revealed, he thought that I maybe had to the last or assassinate or something. So he was defending this side, trying to hit my expensive stuff. But I had this cheeky little Magus, my cheeky little Psyche, just moving up. In turn 2, I said, well, I'm going to pierce the veil over here. And he was like, no, he didn't have any deep strikes. He couldn't move up on him. He was basically stranded, you know, on this side of the table where I was picking my 15 victory points on this side.
Nice.
Yeah, it was, you know, so it's exactly what you want to do as a sneaky git, as a Loki in the Warhammer plethora. You want to be able to force your opponent into second guessing and having to think to defend themselves against several secondaries that I might have. Like, I could have grind them down, so I really want to hit him so he doesn't want to move forward too much. At the same time, I could have bring it down so he doesn't want to expose his heavy hitters, his vehicles. But I could also have, you know, pierce the veil for some stupid reason.
It worked though, right?
It worked, yeah. I won that game, so we had a great time. You know, it was all in the spirit of the game. It was one of the best games I ever had, and not because I won, because I lost my last game against Thousand Suns. That was also one. You know, it was up there. I was laughing so hard the entire game. We both were this perfect gentleman, Luis from Spain. We were having such a good time playing this game, and although he more or less, he didn't really maybe table me, but I got just a handful, but maybe a dozen points. So during the whole game, we had such a good time. So it's not all about winning, but when it works, you know, it's when it works, when you get these moving pieces working together as a, you know, it's almost like watching a concert, you know, with the different musicians playing in harmony. And that one with the Pierce the Veil. It's so funny, man. It was really, really fun to see that work. And I think we're going to see a lot of that sneakiness going forward into the to the next season of a competitive 40K. I'm really looking forward to trying out some of the, testing the different ploys, the different ways to play Genestealer Cults and fool the opponent. But I'm also very much looking forward to, because there are greater minds than mine. I'm just an amateur still. I think there are some players are going to really test the boundaries of this codex and see how can you actually abuse these weird different rules into totally taking over the meta. I don't want that. I like the Genestealer Cults to be more of a middle tier army, so that we can keep biting from the sides into the meta, like not really winning the tournaments, but maybe king making them. But I think we're going to see some very weird lists in the upcoming future, and they're going to be abusive. They're going to be really strong. I think we're just touching the surface, as I said before.
Perfect. Let me hit with you to be respectful of your time. Let me hit with a few more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. So, because it's nighttime there. So
yeah.
So what do you think is the biggest? Let me see if I can phrase this correctly. What style army do you think is the biggest threat towards Genestealer Cult? Because that's something in that class we learned about. Like, okay, Army's good at doing this, but what do you think is the biggest threat to your style army?
Well, I think it's hard to say exactly. I think Thousand Suns is a really hard matchup because they have so much. They have so much psychic. They have so much shooting. They can also fight, and they're really resilient. And they have obsec. And they don't care about morale. So I think they're a really hard matchup. But the hardest one could perhaps be a mirror match. I played 2 games against Genestealer Cults this weekend, one during the championship and one afterwards. The first one, I played against Eric Tat, which is a fantastic Genestealer Cults player. I think he's the best in the world actually right now. I won that game only because I got first turn. So going second against another Genestealer Cults army is really hard. And I think we have to, as a community, really think about how are we supposed to play second against Genestealer Cults as Genestealer Cults players, because the second game I played was in an RTT on the Sunday. I went second, and I was just lost. I had lost it, I think, from that role. After that, it was just mopping up, just shrubbing, brushing my units off the board. Maybe like you felt that you were doing with your Black Templars when we were playing.
Yeah, I just admixed Sunday morning and went second, and same thing. He just shot the crap out of me first turn. I'm like, well, this is over.
Yeah, you could almost just take my deployment zone and just tilt it down into the bag, like in it, brush it down. That was basically it. So we had a great time, but it was a very hard matchup. And I think if I'd gone first, it would have been a completely different game. So a mirror match is probably the hardest for the Genestealer Cult players. Thousand Suns is another one. I think Tau might. I want to play against the new Tau more, but I think that because they are so good at killing vehicles, I think the Horde style Genestealer Cults are really going to have a good time against Tau. Or they might. I might have to eat these words up because we have an upcoming tournament, and I know some Tau players coming to that one. So we'll see how it goes. I'll let you know. But I think because Genestealer Cults are so strong against vehicles, against big robots and monsters. So I think that was going to be I would never say an easy matchup, because this will switch. He will shake the meta up in a big way. Before that, I would probably say before the nerf, I would have said Drukhari, but now, yeah, I think the hit against Thick City that came. Was it today? Was it yesterday? Was it today?
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, that's going to be. I think it's going to get easier now because the Thick City changes. So yeah, 1,000 Suns in a mirror match. That's probably where I'd put my money. But we'll see. I mean, it's really early. As you said already, you know, I had my codex for 1 week before playing at the LVO. So I really haven't tried out this. I haven't tried it out enough to actually make that kind of prediction. But I would say, from what I've seen at least, we're good against Space Marines. It's tough also against Crusher Stampede, but we have the ways to take them out. We have the shooting to take out Custodes. We have the close combat to take out Crusher Stampede. I think we have the movement to take out Drukhari. 1,000 Suns, though, I don't know, man. I have a healthy respect for them. I think they're a really strong army. I'm not sure if everyone, you know, if all factions thinks the same, but for Genestealer Cults at least, we're going to have to think long and hard, you know, about how to actually to come out on top of every game against them. It's going to be an uphill battle.
So they came out at the same time, and they're kind of popular right now. How do you feel GSE goes into Custodes?
Well, I think Custodes are really strong. That we saw that at the LVO too. I was also when I built my list, I was having them, you know, close to mind. I was thinking a lot about how could we take them out, you know, because if you have an army that is too much based on charging, making the charges, and then you have an opponent that can actually, I mean, the Tanglefoot, sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time it turns off your charge. And if you have just a couple of units, like Genestealer Cults are still, they're a horde army, but their army, the units are really expensive. So you need ways to make them connect into the opponent. And if you don't have that, because of that, what's that grenade called? The
Tanglefoot grenade?
The Tanglefoot, yeah, exactly. So if you don't have ways to connect because of that, I think we're gonna be sitting ducks. So I was thinking about it. I think seismic cannons, which is the neophyte. I mean, they shoot earthquakes, you know, and they can make a damage 3 AP2 hits, which is strength 6 + 1 to wound. So they could actually, if you shoot 2 units of infantry with those, they can only transhuman one of them.
Yeah.
So I think you could actually hit and wound one of them at least on 2 pluses and so on. Damage 3 it's actually a really strong counter to them. And as long as you understand and remember that, you know, the bikes don't have the Tanglefoot grenade, you can still charge the bike. So if you have multiple units that can take, you know, you can charge into the bikes, and we have ways to make them fight last. They can't shoot Overwatch. They can't heroically intervene, and so on. There are ways to take them out piece by piece, and you can also. I mean, there are some buff characters that can take away their obsec. You can put obsec and deny their heroically intervention. And there's some spells as well that really could help out. So I think there are ways to counter Custodes. I think they had this in mind when they were putting these armies out at the same time, that Custodes should be able to go really strong into the Genestealer Cult, and the Genestealer Cult should be able to go very strong into the Custodes. So the better general between the two armies playing should be the one that comes out on top. That's probably how they play tested it, because that's what I've seen. But it's a really strong codex, and it's much more forgiving than Genestealer Cult. So the Genestealer Cult's player has to be really much more prepared and think a lot. You know, think twice, move once when they're engaging with the enemy, because otherwise you're gonna get, you know, end up with a Tanglefoot right in your face, and then you're standing there with your 15 acolytes and all your rock drills, and you know they can't do anything, just die to bolter fire like we're used to that we've been doing for years now.
Yeah, we decided to make stuff difficult on ourselves to be nice guys. So we have our GT coming up February 12th and 13th, and
right,
one of our guys plays Tau, and a couple other guys we know play Tau. So like, all right, we'll make the cutoff for the tournament February 5th, so they can get. So we'll probably see Tau at we're streaming the top table, so you might see some Tau there because we're assuming they're just going to come in and wreck Owls.
Yeah,
everyone's like, we're like, well, what? We didn't want to be jerks and be like, no, we're going to do the cutoff earlier. It's like, nah, come on, let them have their book. I mean, come on. So, but if I was a new player jumping into GSC, what would you say would be like, hey, this is the key things you want to get? Is the start collecting box a good thing to get, or is there like a bunch of useless stuff in there? What would you say is like, when you're starting GSC, the key pieces you want?
Well, I would say that I'm not promoting different kits. I think that everyone, all the different units in the new codex have play. I mean, okay. I've seen some people on the internet, and on the internet people can say anything and it doesn't cost them anything. So, some people have said that there is only one unit that is worthless in the codex, and that's the Clamavus. And I would say probably Clamavus is the strongest unit in the book. So there are as many opinions as there are people on this codex, but you can't really go wrong with the Brood Coven, which is the 3 characters. You get them all in one box. The 3 main characters. What do you call them? The HQ characters. That's the Patriarch. Wonderful. He's a bit stick. He can cast 2 spells. He can deny, and he can put your. He throws your other models in front of him when he gets shot or hurt in close combat on a 3+. So he's good fun. Then you get the Magus, which is also a spellcaster, and the third one is the Primus, giving out it's like a Space Marine captain or lieutenant or something, giving out rerolls. So you get all of those 3 in the same box, and I think that's the best box, because you will probably use 1, 2, or even all 3 of those in every game. You will. That's a great box to get. And I think the start collecting box is if anything, just as good as the Brood Coven. So you would need those 2, because the start collecting box has the Icon Ward, the flag guy, and he gives you +1 to charge, and he also gives you free summoning, which is like he heals your units D3 models each within the 6 inches or 9 inches if you get the majestic warlord trait aura. So I think that's a great one. Start collecting box. You get the neophytes in there. You get the acolytes. You need both of them. You get the Ridge Runner, which is a great unit. Great little car, the buggy with a mining laser or missiles. So no, start collecting. I would probably, although I said, I don't promote different boxes or what models to buy, I would probably say to anyone who were sincerely asking, I would say, if you want to start collecting the Genestealer Cults, what should I get? I would answer, in all honesty, 1 Brood Coven and 3 boxes of the start collecting. There's such great value. You'll use every one of those models, and even, I would say all the neophytes are good, and you can use all 3 units. That's 30 neophytes. But you could also actually, if you change the bases, you could, with all the bits that you get from the acolytes, you could build your neophytes as acolyte warriors, and you get some great value out of those boxes as well. So no, I think those 2 are the best. Perhaps, this is also, there's an argument for and against this, but I think the Adelan Jackals, the bikers, are really strong. They can pre-game move. They get all these buffs. They're just 12 points. They got double wounds, -1 to hit in melee and shooting, 4+ save. They can fall back and charge. They can fall back and shoot. They have there's so much value to them. They can give out exposed, which is a special rule that we haven't. It's central to the to this codex, but there's so many things, you can't just, you can't
The crossfire.
Yeah, the crossfire and exposed, crossfire and exposed are two sides of the same coin. So we haven't even mentioned that rule, which is really central to this to this army. I won't go into detail now, but Adel Jackals, the bikers, they have a way to exploit that even further. So that's also a really good book. You should at least get 4 or 5 of them. Maybe to start with. And I've seen, Eric Tat, who is, as I said, a great Genestealer Cult player. He had 30 bikes in his list, and he did very well at the LVO as well, as you would expect. So and they're really cool models. So that's I don't know if it answers your question. There's so many good models.
Well, give us your quick take on, like, if I'm an idiot, give me the quick description of how the crossfire thing works, because you did it to me and I was like, wait, what? So I read about it, but I didn't see it in person. So
right. So I described it to you and you didn't get it, and now you want me to describe it to the.
No, I got it after you gave it to me. It's just amazing how it works. It's like,
I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course. The crossfire rule is totally new to Genestealers for this codex. We never had anything like it, and it's basically if you hit a unit with one of your units, you get +1 to hit that unit with anyone else in your entire army. So you put to identify that, you put out a crossfire marker, which means that you have in some way surrounded that unit and you're harassing them with small arms fire. So even though you're not really hurting them with your auto pistols and your hand flamers and your whatnot, auto cannons, it puts some pressure. You're pinning them down, and you mark that out with a little blip marker that comes with the codex, and you get +1 to hit. And if your models are surrounding that unit, so if you have a unit that's surrounded at the same time as they have a crossfire marker, which means if you have models on opposite sides of this unit, they also count as exposed, and that's the second rule of the crossfire marker rule. So that means that you ignore, you get +1 to wound as well. So the humble shotgun, cult shotgun, which is a strength 4 assault 2 weapon, you could have 20 of them in a unit. They're now hurting Space Marines on 3+. So they're hitting on 3+ and wounding on 3+. And they don't have AP, the particular shotgun, but that doesn't matter, because if you're within 12 inches of an exposed unit, you also ignore cover. So
nice.
You can actually get to hurt some you can put a world of hurt on almost anything if they're crossfired and if they're exposed. So it's a really strong rule, but that's just half of it. That's just the basis of it. Because if a unit is marked with a crossfire marker, that opens up a lot of stratagems. So with a stratagem, if a unit is marked with a crossfire marker, you can make them fight last. You can make them not fire Overwatch, which is going to be really strong. And I use this every game. And the third one, I didn't use this, but this could actually be really clutch in some. I thought I would in against against the Space Wolves, but I didn't. It is that if your opponent has crossfire marker for 1 CP, you can turn off their heroic intervention.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So if like Space Wolves, they're basically I think at least their strongest rule is that the whole army is hero. Their whole army can do heroic interventions. So that way they think that they're safe. But just from shooting your stupid auto pistols and shotguns into some unkillable Space Wolf hero, you can actually turn off their heroic intervention. It makes their army work in a totally different way than they anticipated. So it's really, really strong. Yeah.
So the one thing I saw someone do in a battle report, I thought, oh, that would be interesting for people like to castle up their army is you guys have something to where like you could take, I think it's an area piece of terrain, like say someone sets up their whole army in this area piece of terrain, and then I think it's before the first round, right? You could be like, all right, I'm gonna collapse it or something like that, and then it becomes difficult ground. So then everything there has -2 movement. I was like, that's interesting. I'm like, so
yeah. That's it's called the excavate.
That was it. Yeah, excavate.
Yeah. So it's an army buff. You pay for this in the beginning or during when you're building your list. 20 points. You buy this ability called excavate. So it means basically that your army has dug these tunnels under one of the ruins or whatever you want on the battlefield. It could be your own. So what happens is you choose it at the beginning of the game. After deployment, that piece of terrain loses all benefits and gains difficult ground instead. So you could do that in the middle of the table. So if your opponent has off a moment, for instance, you don't want them to move into the center.
Oh, got
you get -1 to move, right?
Two.
-2 to move. Sorry, yeah, exactly. So, but you could also do it in your opponent's deployment zone so that they move slower out of it, which is of course fantastic against Crusher Stampede. But you could also do it in your own deployment zone. You can have a ruin, but your opponent doesn't have any shooting. So you put the excavate on your own ruin so that when he comes into you or they come into you, they get -1 on their charges. So you can really use that to your own advantage. I didn't find points for it in this list, and especially since the codex is so new to me, I was thinking that the probability that I will use this correctly is very low. And the probability that I will just, flunk it, I will put it on something that will really hurt myself instead, is really strong. It's really big. So I decided not to bring it, but I think it's a really fun mechanic. I love it. I would like to find points for it in my upcoming lists because it's such a cool thing, and especially with player place terrain that we did. I think it's big in the US. Here in Sweden, we don't use it that often. I actually never saw it before going to the LVO. When you place your terrain in order to function in a way, you're setting your whole game up from that terrain that you're putting out in the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And then they just take away all the rules that makes that terrain work for you and just turn it on its head. I think it's a very fun and fluffy mechanic as well. I hope it's good, but I'm not sure if it's good enough to bring it in because at 20 points is a lot for Genestealer Cult.
So
it's hard to find that hole. Yeah.
I'll ask you one last question because thank you for your time again. We don't want to go too long, and hopefully we can have you back after a little time to once you digest the missions and get your takes on what happens. But do you have any final thoughts for us? Do you have a prediction on what you said earlier? You think they'll do well in the missions because you can do actions and still do stuff. But any other final thoughts before we close out this interview?
No, I think what this has been a blast. I had a blast meeting you at the LVO, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you again. It's right.
Me too.
It was such a good time. We were going out and at the games, and you were such a good sport as well when we were playing. So, but I think the main thing that Genestealer Cults were already doing well, the only thing actually that worked during playing with the 8th edition codex during 9th edition, was that we could deep strike and take objectives out from your opponent. You could especially in the missions where you have to hold 2 objectives in order to score any points at all in the primary. That was, I think, Genestealer Cult's strongest game because you could deep strike 3 inches away. You can take out their objectives from underneath their feet. Just pull the rug, as we say in Sweden. Yeah. Maybe you say that in the US too. And that has only gotten stronger because now we have units that can move out of deep strike, like the Kellermorph. You have units that can deep strike 3 inches away, and you can also take away OBSEC with the Clamavus. I mentioned it earlier that people aren't very fond of the Clamavus unit, but I think that's going to be really strong in the upcoming period. You know, you can deep strike onto an objective and then just take away the objective secured rule from the opponent's unit standing on top of it, and just just take away all the primary points that your opponents are scoring during that round. It's going to be really, really strong. And I think the way that they already took, I mean, they put in all of these new rules like proficient planning and crossfire rules and so on, and made our units more killy, like the pure string Genestealers, all of this good stuff. You know, that's icing on the cake. But what they really did that I was so happy about was that they didn't dumb down the codex. It's still a very complex codex, and it's still a very complex army to master. And if you do it right, what we used to do was to be able to play the primary game very well, taking away primary points from your opponent. And we've only gotten better at it with the new codex. And that's what I'm most excited about, you know, looking for what ways we can do that. And really, you know, during the upcoming couple of tournaments, I'm really going to try to experiment about how to actually do that, how to take advantage of those rules that most people actually take for granted in their army, like obsec or standing on the back objective. Like in the workshop, and we didn't even maybe touch on this, but I think the Vanguard Tactics workshop was really good. I think it was really awesome. Good. Yeah, it was fantastic. I've never learned so much about Warhammer 40,000 in such a short time. You know, I think we should have one of those workshops in every tournament in Sweden too. I was really inspired. However, I think that what you think when you're setting up your deployment zone is that I'm going to hold this objective for the whole game, right? Yeah. This is going to be my objective that I'm holding. He used the word, Stephen Box was using this word for it. But anyway, you're going to have one objective that you can hold for the entire game. And what Genestealer cults are doing is taking away that security from you. You know, you can't even be sure that you will hold that in the beginning of your next turn. And that's a really strong one. I think that's going to be that's been most fun. Yeah. So in the next,
I'll blur my background for a second, so don't mind my my messiness here. But I thought of you last night because we are looking at this mission in specific, 31, Tide of Convergence.
Yeah.
Do you know the special rule about this one? So
holding the you don't get command points. Is that one?
Yeah, that's
Describe it, please, because everyone doesn't know it.
So it is, if you don't control your back objective, you don't get your Battleforge CP. So that could be huge. You're taking away the primary, and you're taking away their ability to get their CP every turn. So that's huge. If they can't gain CP, and you're like, son, I'm just gonna hop back here, shut down your primary, and you don't get your CP.
Yep. No, it's fantastic. So I was thinking exactly of that mission. I'm not in a place to make any predictions here, but what I would like to do if I get to play this next week, for instance, is that I would put down the Kellermorph like 6 or 8 inches away from the unit controlling that objective, and the Clamavus, and then the Kellermorph would shoot as many units as possible from that objective, and then immediately move 6 inches onto the objective. So you have it and you contest it. And if the opponent has an objective secured unit, the Clamavus could actually shoot that off, you know, take that rule out. So you actually, you don't even have to hold it, but if you contest it, he doesn't get his command points, right?
Turn 1, no CP, bye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's turn 1 or turn 2, you know, it could be really clutch, because that 1 CP could actually decide the game in the late game, like turn 4, turn 5. If you have 1 CP too little, by then it's, you know, it's tough.
Perfect. Well, Bilbo, thank you for spending this time with us. It was a pleasure meeting you. And if you ever do decide to take another commuter flight, like, you know, that short 11 hours, stop by, see us. We'd love to show you around our part here. We have a we're up in lovely California. I mean, summer, you know, it gets like 115. So I don't know how you like that, but
I'm not used to it. I'll give you that.
yeah. we love air conditioning, so
yeah. I live in one. I can live in an air conditioning.
Yeah.
Well, inside the actual thing, you know, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to pick you up on that, you know.
And maybe in a couple of weeks, if you want, we can get you back on and you can give us your takes once you get some of these missions under your belt. And I mean, you're a valuable resource. It's just awesome to be able to meet new players. And because like you say, in some areas, like you guys don't use play-to-place terrain, right? The reason we started doing this because we went to a Las Vegas team tournament and they're like, well, we're using player-place terrain. We're like, what? What's this? And it's like, okay, now we're doing this. And it changes the aspect of the game where before they're like the things here, you can actually, like you say, influence the game by putting this piece here, that piece there. It's like you have some control over where it goes. And you can screw yourself up, as I found out. So, But exactly. Yeah, let's get you back on in a couple of weeks after you play some games and see how you feel about the new, as they're calling them, seasons. So
yeah, exactly. Can't wait. I can't wait. I'd love to.
Perfect. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye.